Good evening, everyone. Eh, we'll go with it. I don't know. We did some updating today. Things are not working quite the way I wanted them to. Not unusual. We'll get her figured out eventually, I guess. I hope. Okay. We'll have a go at some little box of a different shape, put it that way. Saw this on Instagram a while back and I thought it looked like an interesting idea. It'd be a side grain lidded box. That's not something I normally would do, but we'll give it a whirl. See how it works. We need a tool rest. One could turn this round or cut it semi-round, but might as well just make it into chips. Clean the face shield off a little bit. Guess we can bring things in a bit too. So we'll start off using our bowl gouge as usual. Close up the shower curtain. It doesn't even matter if we spring a little bit off of the end because we have to clean all that up anyhow. It's not quite round. Don't believe. Nope. Oh, we should be able to go over to there. Things, I got things cleaned. There we go. A little bowl shape, I guess. Let me see. That's too big. Yeah, for that size, yes. Let's go down to here. I'll give that a whirl. See what it looks like. Spin the gouge somewhere. There. A little bit of a foot. Probably can even make it a little bit of a rounded foot over there. Something like that. Concave, so that's good. Switch our handle over. This is ash, so it should scrape very, very well. So the scraper, we're going to bring the tourist up a bit. 2 foot. Simple little decoration. I think we could actually curve back in maybe a little bit at the top. Successfully making more flat. It's cut clear now. That's better. Give it a little smear spray. That should be that. And it's pretty small, so I think we'll just do the hand sanding routine. Switch some landscapes around maybe. We got work. It will not work to do that, though. Let's switch chucks. Didn't make it for that size. A little overkill for the chuck for the size of piece, but it'll work. Grains running up and down. See whether we got the center size. Oh yeah, it should be just right. Should not leave a mark. Hopefully. I should be able to go to there. That right in there. Should look. Take care of this sharp corner. Rest a bit high. Just a whisper. Now we need a shoulder. Since it's only going to be shallow, so I think I can just do that with a parting tool. something like that. That little sharp edge. I think that should work. It's not going to be very deep. Deep enough? Yeah, I think so. Kind of have the camera in a little bit of the road. Not going to be real thin. That feels like I'm still plenty thick in the bottom. There's nothing else. We do get the scraper out. And I think that's what we might do. Get into the smaller, tighter radius. It gets a little troublesome. So we'll go with the overkill scraper. I don't really have a little round one to go in there. So we'll just use the bigger one. And we can probably get really carried away and get the really big handle on it. Don't really need, but it'll work. So, before else comes up a bit. Let's take care of that. Too many things laying here. Gonna dump the camera all over the place. There we go. Gotta work. And we're gonna get fresh sandpaper. I need 220, 320, 400. More than enough. Who's that? Probably if we needed to, I have to go to the bigger jaws, but we could probably grip this in that little cavity there if we needed to. Just this is kind of a bit of a concept piece in a way. So we'll go back and make our lid before we get carried away because the lid's probably going to have a little recess underneath it. So we'll set our calipers to the outside of this, wherever that may fall. Where's about there? Should be somewhere around 2 inches on the outside there, I think. So bottom done. And now I'll do the top. This one's going to need a fair amount removed because it's definitely longer than it is wide. So rather than being lazy in a way, makes sense going to the bandsaw to take that little bit off. And just turn it into chips. A little easier to deal with little pieces. Chips into those little pieces of wood. I'm going to erase off this thing and take big steps out of it. Okay. Now it's round, mostly, all of it. There's a little bit of pith in there. That's not a good sign. A little branch or something went through. I might have to go down further than that. That would probably cause me aggravation, but we'll see where it goes. We'll flatten this out. I really need to look at this knot. I'm going to have to explore a little bit on that because that can't be, that really can't be in the tenant going into that. We need to get rid of what we don't want. Yeah, it's got a little, let's go a little more. Like I say, this is just a kind of a concept piece. This probably now is going to be too small. But we'll see how well it works. I'm sure I can find a piece of maybe another. This is ash. I'm finding another piece of ash or maybe a piece of walnut or something that would be a contrast in color. Okay, so we got a smooth surface. So a little recess in there, somewhere thereabouts. This is the parting tool with a little dovetail on it. How are you doing? So we'll make this into a little button. Yes. Okay. Now this should give us a place to get a hold of it. Now, come up with a size. We'll go strong at first, of course. And I figured it wasn't going to be, I didn't think it was going to be much out there left, which is sort of what I wanted. Alright. There's those feet across there. And it caused more work. Probably could have just as easily do that with a parting tool rather than spindle gouge, but the spindle gouge gives me a nice clean cut. That's the reason I like that, using that better. Oh, well, it would be just as easy to use our parting tool. And use the edge of it, it's still going to should sort of scrape that clean. Close but no cigar. Let's give it sort of a little taper to go with it. Just being side grain, it definitely can't fit tight. They're still tight. Mm. So I figured we'd get loose, but loose in that fashion is probably a good thing. Because when this moves, then we'd be in trouble with the changes in the seasons. And we shouldn't have cut that completely off. So we'll have to do it the old-fashioned way and actually measure something. Out about there. Another kind of a brain thought on that one would be to give it a nice sort of little bead in there. We'll use that as our gripping point. And we'll go back with our pointy one and just give it just a little bit of an undercut right there. That should work for that. Always the fun part of trying to make something sort of decorative on the bottom a little bit. I could ran more beads, but I think I'll just give this a little bit of a transfer in there. I think that's good enough. Let's see who's texting me for some reason this hour. Might as well answer that. So, train of thought. It needs sanded, but I think I got it right. Yes, and we'll sand it. Wanted to make sure my little brain was working on that right wavelength. There's only one time to sand this, and that would be like right now. And then take a couple seconds. And we do need a little dust collection. Okay, so that's the bottom finished out. We're really creative. And I probably don't have it over here. I'd have to go get it. Yeah, I would. I'll be right back. Give it a little bit of a texture in there. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking around and it's laying right here on the workbench. Duh. So try and give it a little star in the middle. Can't say that I'm the world's greatest at that, but okay. Gave it a little star. All we have to do, could have made it even a little deeper. A little bit of fine sandpaper and go across it. Knock off the little fuzzies. And a little star. Okay. I say I think this piece is going to end up being a little bit too thin, or we may have to, in order to salvage it, we have to just actually make a little knob for it or something. Easier to do that. This sort of allows you to use the natural curve of the guide to create a curve. And I think that's going to be a sort of a knob or something on these. I think that edge can be pretty small out there. At least I hope, because I made it small. Okay. That'll kind of work. A little OG shape. And we'll have to. That's probably alright. About 3/4 of an inch up there. Plenty loose. Probably could even left that maybe a little bit thicker than what it is. I'm not that smart. I hear you. I hear you on that part. Obviously not very well. Let's make sure we didn't get that too big now. Still 3/4. That's probably right. Okay. So, wonders of making litter boxes is once you get done doing is sanding. That's one good thing. They're small enough that the sanding part goes quick enough and easy enough. Wasn't necessarily looking along the lines of having it have a separate knob on it, that's for sure. But it will work. We got plenty of depth. Plenty deep. So that would be the lid. Now the problem is going to be finding something that's going to win that chuck. Probably be best if it was a little piece of walnut. And having such a thing in arm's reach is not always the case. What is it? Let's grab that. A little wasteful in some ways, maybe, but it's okay. It's wood, grows on trees. And with the small tool rest, First order of business, we'll make this round. And it's probably way too big. Might actually make more sense if it was both directions. If it wants to cooperate, no. Oh, yeah, duh. Two, both directions. A little more curvy, right? Switch over to spindle gouge to be a little easier to make the curves. And I probably should have measurement. First measurement we're going to go for is where this is flat. And that doesn't really matter. Because that would be way too small. Yeah, it's not that far off of that. Switch over to my little spindle gouge. Big ones get in the handle gets in the way. For me, anyhow. Okay. Here's where they either get it right on the first try or usually way wrong. That is to make the little tenant. That's probably 5 there. So, oh, down there's a little tight. I'd rather have that a tiny bit loose. I'll glue that in with wood glue. The real pain if it's too tight or it's too loose. You can use our parting tool is actually grounded at an angle for the dovetail jaws, which will give me a tiny little undercut underneath that. Make sure I like my knob either. Just give it some couple of lines or something out there. Not the right time to do it, and you hear that as soon as I touch the tool to it, it squealed. It means there's not enough meat behind it. So it wants to give it stress. So I even give it some stress just the same. If I go too hard on it. Make life difficult to get down in that little tiny little crack down there. You got it that time. give it a little, leave that one second. Found a little corner. This is a piece of Formica. It will actually burn a line in there, hopefully. That'll work. Formica needs a little different shape than that to do that with correctly. And this, the rest of it I can finish other ways. This I cannot. So we'll just give this a little quick finish job. The other part actually this was, now I know that it's going to work the way I thought it was going to work by, in ash, something like that, I could do some little dyeing and grain filling on it, which would make it look make it stand out. Otherwise, that's just going to be sort of a plain piece of ash. My normal finish, if you ever watched me before, it's a 3408 slow setting super glue. Very quick and easy to use, especially for nice small projects like this. Good place to start with it, put it that way. You pretty much finish almost everything that would be a natural wood same way. One coat application. 40-second time delay allows it to soak in. Wipe off the excess. Since we're going to keep moving, we're going to accelerate it even. One little squirt at a distance, not up close and personal. Lose the glove. Now we can cut this thing off. And we'll use our little itty bitty parting tool. Actually, it's always kind of a pain to put it on the lid. And I normally just hit these on the buffing wheel. Yeah, it's walnut. It's the grain walnut and the abrasive paste that I have is white, so get rid of that point. Oh, guess there's something else I should look at. I know said I drilled that plenty deep, but I know how well plenty deep goes on something like that. Yeah, that's good. So for the end a little bit. And the multi-million-dollar question, it fits. So that works. Could have actually been a little bit tighter, but like I say, the wood glue will take up the space. I knew where the bottom was. We could look at the bottom. Go back to overhead. So there's our little side grain lidded box. Not finished inside yet, but since I know that it's going to work, it looks okay. This could probably be thinner than that. But if I was so minded, I could undercut that rim a little bit too, just to make it a little thinner, a little lighter. But I think that'll work. Since we have this little scrappy piece here, I'm going to put just a little bit of a tenon on it. It may or may not actually grab in those jaws, but if it don't, it certainly will grab in the smaller jaws at some point. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. That's okay. Off to the bin. The bin of no return kind of things. And we should have finished the inside. While we were there, that would have been easier. But I think we can just put it over top of that. Yeah. See if I can be messy. I know the answer to that one. Yes, I can be messy. Without a doubt. This is where I kind of like doing this kind of stuff. It's kind of a challenge because, like I say, I saw a picture of some lidded boxes that somebody made somewhere on one of the social medias, and I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting design. Guess we can just squirt some in here. And then we'll go to town. Let's just do it. And probably be smarter if I actually had a glove on my left hand, because inevitably I'll end up with glue on my fingers, like I already did. Because I want to get this outside rim going around there. Maybe just touch the rim a little bit. And we'll get to drying it off. We don't want any of the excess laying on the surface. It will not, it'll set up and cure, but it will not flatten itself out. It wants to soak in and then cure in there, not sitting on the surface. It's not a multiple build kind of super glue. There's a different one if you wanted to do that routine. We're going to dry it off nice and neat, put the cap on the bottle, because I'm going to use some activator on this bottom, and then we'll do the inside of the box. And then we'll come back to that. You definitely don't want to spray the activator around things that you, with an open bottle of super glue, because it will, a couple little droplets of that in there, and you've now ruined a bottle of super glue. It takes very, very little to make that work. So we know it doesn't make any marks in there, so we can go back and grip that. We'll go back to the end. And then we'll finish the inside in this rim. That'll be enough. So what I try not to do is, the temptation is to do this rim, and I could do half of this up here, but wherever I stop at and would flip it around, even though it's only going to be a couple minutes, this will set up and I'll have a place where it gets confused because it can't soak in. So when it's on top of itself, it will set up quicker. And then I'd end up having to stand a little bit in there. Otherwise, I probably will end up having some places that I'll have to do that with anyhow. But and of course, always the challenge is to get the rim in there. Just let gravity do the work. A little bit in there, spin it around, give the inside a little bit more. Catch this rim again. Ash is pretty thirsty. That should be good enough. Once, just like before, wiping off the excess. Especially in places in there where you could leave a bit sitting behind. And we will set that off. Would have been better if I'd used the same jaws, but we didn't. These I don't think are closed. Nope. The inside of that bowl is very difficult to buff, so if I give it a little bit of time here, then I will use some abrasive paste in there. But we can finish the outside of this. Not with that turkey though. Bickmark makes wonderful chucks. It's just kind of confusing why they had to do two separate sizes of chuck keys. Would have been kind of nice if they would have done the one size fits all, but I sort of get it. I mean, the bigger chucks have the bigger element on it, but to me it wouldn't make much of a difference. But that's probably why I'm a retired truck driver and not an engineer. So wipe on, give it a couple seconds. The other side is sealed. This side, whichever side you do first, the other side will take less material because you clogged up the pores. So The air can't flow through the wood, so to speak. Just trying to make sure I get it totally dry. That takes care of that side. Little activation. Okay, don't stick the two pieces together. That would be a bad move. And now, once again, we got to get the other bigger chuck out. So I should be able to grab a hold of that inside the lip. At least that's the thought process. Like we're using the worm screw with a little block of wood up there. And this probably going to be the next problem is you don't have anything in between. And of course, oh yeah, well. So we just expand out into them. There, in all reality, if I needed to return something down here or sand something, could do that. That's almost like a perfect circle on there. So it shouldn't be putting any marks in there either. But when you go with that philosophy, you're really hard pressed. There is a teeny tiny little bit of a mark here in one place for some reason. So I probably should actually get a fresh little edge of sandpaper because I want the cut edge to go down in that crack. So it must be down a bit. Be careful with doing this with gloves on. These Nurgle gloves have a tendency to actually grab a hold of things. That got rid of it. Yep. It really doesn't take much to get rid of that because I didn't, not like I bared down on it real hard. And it was close to that circle. And don't do that what I just did. That's really a bad thing to do, to actually touch stuff like that with these gloves on. Did it a while back with something. I think it was a finial or something smaller in diameter and had a little bit of a point to it or whatever. It grabbed a hold of the glove and just started wrapping it up. And these things might tear easy enough when you don't want them to, but when you need them to, it didn't want to tear very well. Nice liberal coat. Again, we have a crack. Let gravity do the work. It'll run right around there for you. Might have to do both sides, but usually one side is enough. It's just this little outside rim right there because this need to use the pyrography and I put the species of the wood plus my initials. It's the extent of what I do with it. And then the same way, it'll get a little bit of the Trustfield 3408 on top of it. Seal everything on the bottom as well. Once again, wipe off the excess. Or make more sense probably there. And set it off. One more little chuck change. We'll polish up the inside of that. The rest of it, the outside and the lid, can all be buffed with a buffing wheel. We might just up and do that as well while we're at it. Just tight. If you're concerned about whether the super glue will stick fast to the jaws, they will. But you can get away from it with using a little bit of wax on there. A little bit of the fine abrasive paste. Slow the speed down so I don't wear it. Actually, if you read the directions, they tell you should smear it around first. That's what I do with the people in teaching classes because I don't want them having a face full of it. How are you doing this fine evening here, Billy? I didn't mean to ignore you. I heard you. Get a clean bit of paper towel. Get that groove out. And we'll bring our speed back up. Oh, we're not doing too bad. I joined a group of retired people this week, so as of Wednesday of this week, I am no longer employed. So now I get to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Kind of been a good feeling in a way. Really hasn't set in too much yet. Because it really was only, I really technically had an extra 2 days off. So that's the inside finish. That's another way of dealing with the Parfix as a finish as well. You can just use the fine abrasive paste. I wouldn't recommend using the coarse stuff on it. Of course, if you wanted to go one, you could go to the next, sort of the next level, and you could actually put some wax in there. I don't like to do that on a lidded box, just by virtue of none of them waxes have no odor to them. Inside done, outside done, wherever we put our knob. I think we will put the buffing wheels on and just see if we can't make this sort of a completed project. To get my gloves off. Oh, that was it, trash. No. So, yeah, that one. So that's what we're going to look like all done up. Little lid, little box. Not sure what you would put in it, but it's kind of an interesting concept. I mean, it is all side grain, so I mean, started out with all 2-inch thick material, even a little less. So that would be kind of a nice, simple, common kind of material to get a hold of easily enough for anybody. And myself included, I have a whole bunch of it, different varieties of wood. And I did it just, I mean, these are just little scrap pieces that were laying around here. I mean, I would say you could make something like that probably, I don't know, 5, 6 inches in diameter, maybe even more. Clean the buffing mill, get rid of the excess that was already there. Get up around 1700 RPMs. Little Vonax, which comes out of the UK. I'll start with the knob. Hopefully don't show you how you can throw the knob across the room. Definitely want to be careful when you're buffing small stuff. Light touch. I normally, with this stuff, I would normally allow this to dry, cure overnight. You will actually get a better shine out of it. And then it'll be 100% cured. A lot of times people are impatient, so they like to go after things before they're really ready. The lines really didn't show very well with black. There's another, if I can find it, I have something else that would make them stand out. I have some white grain filler. Let's see, we did the underside first. The other problem you can run into when you start going after something like this too quick on the buffing, your buffing will sort of create a little bit of a, I don't know, a vacuum effect on things, where it's trying to suck things out of the wood pores. And this being so thin that when you go after it too quickly, you can just actually pull some of it back up to the surface. Because it's quite amazing how far down in the grain it does go. Done some little demonstrations for people, especially on when it gets into the end grain of something, like the spectre fly, like one of them. That's what I usually would do, is have some that's sort of cut on a bias across the grain, and dump some of it on the end grain, and probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch down the block is where it runs out the side. Once again, the edge, be a little careful. Think of it as a traditional scraper that it needs to be at a negative angle downward. There's a little place along the rim. You may or may not be able to have seen that. I'll show it to you here. Turn the buffing wheel off before I knock it. You can see right here, it's a different color. A little bit of a different color right there. It's also has some texture to it. Here's where you really should be patient, but a little bit of 800 grit sandpaper, because what that line is it was already sealed and filled right there with the super glue. And now that's a little bit, that's some super glue that's actually sitting on top of the surface. It cured when I did the bottom side. It's really just in that one little place. But a little bit of sanding. Back to our buffing wheel. And we'll do that little spot that where I was at. And you'll never know it was there. And like I said earlier, if you didn't have the buffing wheels, you certainly can use the abrasive paste on it. You know, do just pretty much just the same thing. The only thing with the abrasive paste, you have to watch um, the really big open grain woods. You can actually shove some out of the abrasive paste down in them open pores, and it doesn't really want to come back out. That's the only thing I've found with it. But if you did a good job sealing it and filling the grain, well, there's nowhere for it to go anyhow. Fingers tell all, and rub my fingers over everything. I'm feeling for any little bumps that we made a mistake or something like that. The shinier the finish, the better the surface area has to be. That is one caution I always tell everybody that wants to do a shinier finish, especially in my classes. We just do a beeswax finish, and like your project is nowhere nowhere near sanded well enough to do a shiny finish on, because the shinier it gets, the more imperfections it has. It will show. So just food for thought. Keep that in mind. The shinier it gets, the better the surface has to be. Switch to the really soft buffing wheel, little Carnauba wax. Gives it another level of shine. Gives it a little bit more protection. Not that it really needs the protection, but it just gives it a more of a super silky smooth finish to it. I mean, it's already smooth, but the wax just makes it slippery smooth. I guess that's how I would put it. And there's nothing says that I can't come back tomorrow if I was so minded, or next week, or whenever I find somewhere that I missed as far as the buffing went and things like that. You know, there's no time limit on coming back to it and doing something else more to it. We'll go over here and get a little bit of wood glue, and we'll glue that knob in. Or no, we're not. Let me get my green stuff. think this is some, yeah, this is deco art. This is some stuff that I got at, I'm going to say Hobby Lobby, something like that. I think this was even supposed, I think according to the package, I think it was supposed to be water-based. I know this much, it sets up incredibly quick. Can't say that would be top 10 on my list of things to use. Maybe it's gotten hard on me too. Hmm. So, how do you like them apples? I say, remember it said it was water-based, so what happens if we put a dribble of water in it? Find out in a hurry. Yeah, it's definitely water-based. It's really softening it up quickly. This will probably really make me be able to make a mess with it. Probably one of them deals of probably should dump a little, maybe even a little bit more water in it and let it take a little nap overnight or something. And come back to it another time, but I don't like to do that. And get a popsicle stick. Just see whether I can actually mix that up that it's ooh, that's way too much. Yeah, I think white's not going to be the color of that for that tonight. Just gonna let that sit and see what it does on its own after I dribble it all over the place. I use a clean glove and we'll put some other color in there. Because I really didn't get a dark black line like I would want in there. So, oh, yeah, here we go. A little copper color in there. This is the Chroma Guild. This is the stuff that I like to use this stuff on filling, grain filling. I'm not necessarily using it like this, but it will work like this. Definitely got way more out than what I needed. Just like the super glue, I'm trying to get the, I normally don't do it with, I don't normally use super glue to do the process. I would normally use a shellac or something like that and seal the grain. We'll just let it sit there a second because the grain is already filled. We'll just buff off the excess. And now we have copper lines in it. And it will dry hard eventually. It is an oil-based product, so it will dry hard. But even though you say, well, I got that end grain sealed really, really well. If you look really close, there's obviously little bits of copper got down into the end grain, even though it was already sealed. But nonetheless, it works. A little decorative touch to it. It's always good to add a little color to life. Now we can glue it since we're done playing with it. We can glue it in place. Widen things out a bit. Simple wood glue. And drip a nice glob of it down inside. This I'll make less of a mess doing it this way. At least I plan on making less of a mess. Use a toothpick to bring it back up to the top. Get a nice coat around the top. Because if I put it on the knob and try and shove it in there, definitely wouldn't work very well. That's going to take a little while to set up though. So we'll just leave it alone. Like I say, it's not as tight of a fit as what maybe it could be. Could have been a little tighter, but the wood glue will take up the excess and should stick fine. But it will take a few minutes for it to do so. Yeah, it's already getting stiff. There we go. Our lidded box for the night. Kind of different. Kind of a nice change of pace in lidded boxes. I think to me that's a lidded box that maybe would be a little bit more useful, or at least people would feel a little useful because it's bigger. Maybe the ladies could put their earrings or whatever in there. So other than that, I think that's going to be an evening for me. It is, yeah, it's 8:20. It's a little late getting started. We haven't did some computer updates and switched to Windows 11, and my son-in-law's the computer guy, but he did that part of it, and it looked like everything was going to work all right up until it's ready to start actually streaming or something. And then some things didn't want to cooperate as well as what they should have, but it is what it is. And we are on vacation this following week, and we'll be out of town, so there will be no streaming next weekend. The following weekend I have a class, but I'll probably do a stream. Yeah, that glue's already taken a hold. So there's inside, little flower on the inside. Those there, you can actually make them kind of look really kind of neat if you would put some, if I would have taken the time to put a little shellac over that and did put a little bit of the grain filler in there, because the grain filler would have went down in those little V's and would have really made it look like a flower. But there it be. Time to call it a day. Anybody have any questions, comments? Like I say, otherwise, like next week I won't be here. Following week, yeah, some point. So, Thank you. And we will see you next time.